Once upon a time, my mindset was just trying to make as much money as I could, as fast as I could.
I sold drugs, hustling, stealing, robbing, hanging in the street. I wasn't a good person. I was in and out of jail.
It was a part of the game.
They was just making up my own rules. So I wanted to feel like I mattered.
My pride wouldn't allow me to ask for help.
I did everything that I needed to do to survive.
There's this whole perception about everybody can pull themselves up from the bootstraps, right? Well, that's not real. If no one's willing to give you an opportunity, you don't even have boots.
My daughter was probably 2 months when I was incarcerated. Before you know it, she's walking. Before you know it, she's talking. Those are the things that cause the real change.
Missed my daughter's prom, to miss her graduation. I wasn't there. That was it for me. So I wanted to make a change for myself. And I promised her and my son that I wasn't gonna go to prison again.
One year, one of my younger sisters got indicted with my brother. And that's when I realized I gotta do something different.
I didn't know what I was gonna do. I just knew I didn't want to go back to jail, nor did I want to die.
I always knew that there was an end game, just didn't understand exactly how to exit.
I thought that hustling and selling drugs and carrying guns and hanging on the corners, I thought that was normal. I thought you had to do that to survive. So for me, the change was something that switched off. And either the streets are gonna take over and I'm gonna go back to prison, or I'm gonna just take this step and see what HangTime can do for me.
Those individuals who had to overcome major obstacles, they just have to have a direction other than what they believed was their only option. The minute you show them the sustainability of living a different life is real, now you've made an impact.
Some people make a mistake in life and then gotta live with it. Here, you don't have to. HangTime touches a community that people don't want to touch. It's proof that you can change, and I did.
HangTime gives you an opportunity where you can share your opinion and no one can tell you you're wrong.
It's a safe space where you're respected and treated as if you matter.
HangTime is needed in every community because it plants seeds of hope. It plants seeds of change. It addresses real problems, and not only that, it offers solutions.
They take this beautiful slice of community, love, and humanity and walk out of the HangTime room and carry it with them through the rest of their lives.
My favorite thing about HangTime is I learn something new every time.
It was a social issue. It's some history, learning about different cultures, because there's so many different types of people down there in HangTime, different ethnicities and religions, and everybody saying how they felt. And I'm like, that's what gets me going.
I just got an apartment. I got a car. These people pushed me to do that. If somebody saw that in me, I must be changing.
If you need help, if you need a change, if you need support, someone to talk to when it comes to your mental health, physical health, education.
And these people are actually doing something so spectacular in their lives. I started living each day with purpose because of HangTime.
I would like people to know that if you put 1 foot forward, HangTime will put 2, and we won't let you down.
The day I met you, my life extended. I got on the right path.
I wanted to make the universe better for me and my kids and someone else's kids.
I want to help somebody.
I knew something good was gonna come out of here.
If you are ready for lifelong change,
To be able to help the next me, it gives you peace and happiness.
I just want to make my mark here.
I have one question for you. Tell me who you are, where you're from, why you're mad or why you're glad, and when you're coming to HangTime.
Hi, and welcome to SOS Stories of Survivors. I'm Serina Dansker, your host, and what you just saw was a transformational program that exists in the state of Connecticut. And I'm so excited today to introduce today's guest. Not only is she a fierce advocate, compassionate leader, and a true force for transformation, but Michele Litt is the Executive Director of HangTime, a trauma-informed re-entry support program designed to empower formerly incarcerated men and women with the tools, community, and courage they need to rebuild their lives. Through her work at HangTime and HeartTime, Michele holds sacred space for the men and women who are so often unheard and unseen, reminding them of their inherent worth and that they are more than enough. But Michele doesn't just talk the talk. She walks the walk. She is with these people all of the time and there to support. Her story is one of resilience, advocacy, and unwavering love. Please join me in welcoming the extraordinary woman, survivor, and soul warrior, Michele Litt.
Thank you, Serena. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. And I really want to understand what inspired you to get involved with HangTime and HeartTime.
Well, Serena, that's a good question because like many of us, I was at a point in my life where I was looking for something to give me a meaningful purpose. I was actually working with another organization where I was running a grant program where we were funding organizations that were doing impactful work. But not just on their own, working in collaboration with community. I met Charlie Grady, who runs the HangTime program, and we gave him a little bit of money. I spent some time with the organization and realized that I could probably provide way more value working with him than just giving him money. And this was over 3 years ago now.
Oh my God, that's incredible. So what kind of support, or actually share a bit about your personal journey and how it led you to advocacy and community work in general. I mean, you say you were with another company offering grants, and how did you get started in that?
Well, I had made a career change. I'd done a number of different things in my life. I started out in finance. I was drawn to New York and did some work there. Took some time off to raise my kids. I then got involved in the nonprofit sector as a segue back into the workforce. And that's how I started working in nonprofits in general and was recruited to run a new grant program at the United Way.
Wow, that's incredible. And so I know that the re-entry process is crucial and a critical issue, especially with women and also with men. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So in the state of Connecticut, where we work, the reoffend rates are incredible. Most individuals who have come home will reoffend and go back to prison in the first year at a rate of 45%.
What?
Those
Wow.
same individuals, if they're out for 3 years, will go back at a rate of 76%. A lot of this is driven by the fact that you come home, sometimes you lack skills, you lack education, and you also lack positive support in your life. Mm-hmm. And that's the support that HangTime provides. And we serve as a connection network for individuals who come home from incarceration to help them reintegrate back into their communities.
That's incredible. How does HangTime differ, though, from HeartTime in its approach and its programming?
That's a really good question. So, HangTime was started 10 years ago for men coming home from incarceration. And HeartTime, its sister program, was actually started by women, not women who were incarcerated themselves, but women who couldn't figure out where their loved one, their man, their boyfriend, their father, their brother was going every Tuesday night, a place that they were going that they weren't mandated to go. And remember, if you've ever been in a system where you're told where to eat, where to stand, how to behave, this was something that was really empowering, and women couldn't figure out where the men were going. So HeartTime was created actually as a support group for women who had a loved one incarcerated. Wow. It has since morphed to be just a supportive group of women if you've been incarcerated yourself, if you have a loved one incarcerated, or if you just want to be involved with something really positive in your community. And that's what Her Time does.
You know, that's so incredible. I was talking with a friend not too long ago, and we were just saying how, you know, it's time that, you know, life has changed for women, you know, building up women and supporting and caring for each other is starting to become more and more pronounced in my everyday life. I meet so many different people, and whereas we would talk, and once upon a time, you know, you would not want to be friends with so many women because you'd feel like torn down, or you would feel jealousy or whatever. But I think the tides are turning. I think it's about time that we're forming our community, and we're supporting each other, and we're making a difference in each other's lives, almost like a sisterhood, if you will. But I'm curious. So for Her Time specifically, what kind of support do they provide the women re-entering society?
Well, first I'm going to take a step back because
Okay.
you used the word sisterhood. And that's what we call Her Time. And
Really?
And one of the things, and we've always talked about Hang and Her Time in general, is that it's this microcosm of a greater society that we all want to be a part of. Because imagine if you walked into a place where nobody judged you. Nobody looked you up and down to see what you were wearing. Instead, you were greeted with a hug. People asked about your day, and nothing that you said was taken out of context or offended someone or was viewed as competitive to someone. And that's the first part of it. The second part of support that we provide, I hate to say it, it's as simple as love. It's as simple as encouragement. We call ourselves at Hang and Her Time a family. In fact, if you come into a Hang or Her Time room and you call it a program, you will be shouted out of the room, and you'll be told it's a family, that we're sisters, we're brothers. This is my uncle, and it's, you know, it's the family you choose. And for someone who may not have had any positive support, who may not have had any positive role models, who may have come from a background of incredible trauma, which we'll talk about, because so many individuals who go to prison have been through a lot of childhood trauma. It's just that type of support is first and foremost. Secondly, we provide connections to resources. Oftentimes you come home with no ID. You need to get employment. And so we collaborate with lots of other providers to offer you jobs, trainings, education, mental health support, all those connections you can get at Her Time. And, you know, we always talk about our programs, sorry, that's the bad word, the P word, our family, as offering connection in that 2-hour period, but yet behind the scenes, it's like, imagine if you're looking at an iceberg. And so the tip of the iceberg is the 2-hour session where you come to a Hang Time, you come to a Her Time, but underneath the iceberg is what our program managers are doing all through the week to make sure that you get what you need, because you're looking for something and you're not getting it because you may be residing in a residential facility, or you just don't know where to go. And that's the kind of support that we provide.
Oh my God, that's just so amazing. I mean, what a brilliant idea. I wish they did it in every state. You know, I think this is something that you're onto something here, Michele. I think it's really beautiful. Can you walk us through like a typical Her Time, I don't want to say a meeting, but a family event or session, if you will?
I sure can. And let me take a step back too. And I may be onto something, but I am just part of a larger team. As I said, Charlie Grady started this organization in 2014. We have 18 different part-time and full-time individuals that work with us to make sure that this program, family, continues and grows and morphs and is innovative and is addressing needs. But there's a real formula to a Her Time session, which you don't actually know when you walk in there, because it seems really natural, relaxed, and organic. And at first it starts off with everyone, you go around the room, and the program facilitator will ask you what your name is, why you're mad or glad. And by doing this, oftentimes we can figure out in the room at her time what you need, what you're going through. You may say, hey, I had a great day today, and let me explain to you why. Or you could say, I'm really having a tough time. I just came home. My kids don't speak to me. I've spent most of my life away from them. And I need to let them know that I'm a new person now, that I'm really going to try to break my bad habits. And so that's the beginning of any hang or hurt time session, is where you walk around the room and you explain your name, you explain why you're mad or glad. From there, there's typically a lesson on, because we think education is really important, a lesson in history or current events. And everyone's opinion is valued. And so we problem solve through discussion in that 2-hour session. We also always provide a hot meal. Everyone is always served. And, for some people, it's maybe the only hot meal that they get that week. We had an individual, I remember this really distinctly because it made a big impression on me. And it was a man. He was in Bridgeport HangTime. He said, I grew up in this city. I've been home for 11 months. My family lives here, and I've never been once served a hot meal with them the way I am here every week at HangTime.
That just breaks my heart. It really does, because I'm a huge proponent of family and just being there for each other. And, I wonder, I don't know really anyone who's been incarcerated, but I'm sure there are barriers when you're coming out of incarceration. And can you talk a little bit about what some of the biggest barriers either men or women face?
Sure, I'm happy to. Well, it goes without saying, one of the biggest barriers is that you have a felony record, which will dictate kind of what you can or cannot do. I will also mention to you that most HangTime members, family members, have fairly significant criminal histories. So it's not white collar crime for most of them. And so that's clearly a barrier. Education, lack of education, lack of a consistent W-2 job or work experience. So that's a big barrier. Oftentimes you come home with no money, no ID, which you have to get. So you kind of start from ground zero. You have limited skills. You have limited work experience. You don't even have an ID. You can't you can't apply for a job without that. You can't get health insurance without that. And so that's just a bare minimum. Again, I talked about trauma, and I really believe that trauma plays a big role in an individual being incarcerated. And so there are mental health challenges. Sometimes there are substance use issues. More so I find with women who've been incarcerated than men. But so all of these things create a barrier. And sometimes when the barriers are just so great and the hill seems so high that you have to climb, it makes you want to just give up. And sometimes you just need someone to kind of cheer you on and say, you can do this. And, last week we had an experience where there was a gentleman who came home, and we typically have a protocol that we follow when we give people what we call emergency support, which we have funding aside. And this young man ended up asking for a bus pass, just a bus pass. It was a 30-day bus pass, probably cost us $71. When we gave it to him, he started to cry because no one had done anything this nice for him. Like, what a little thing that goes such a long way.
It warms my heart that that something so small can make such a big impact on people's lives. And you talk about sharing, helping them with this burden, sharing the burden. And what I've discovered through my own traumas, through grief and everything, is that when you do have burdens, and we all have our burdens, our crosses to bear, when you do have someone to help you carry that 3,000-pound elephant that's sitting on your shoulders, it makes it a little bit easier. It makes it a little bit lighter, and you're able to move a little bit better, and talking about trauma, and you've mentioned it too. Let's talk about how trauma plays a role in reentry or especially with her time, I mean, with children too. I mean, I'm sure the women have children and that becomes an issue. So can you talk a little bit about the trauma?
Sure. I mean, women in particular, I think it's reintegrating is one thing. Reconnecting with your children is something even harder. And, you know, we talk about trauma, and I find a lot of times there's abuse that these women have suffered, and men as children, sexual abuse, physical, emotional abuse, and then that's carried on to the next generation, right? Yeah. And there's this kind of old adage of, don't tell what goes on in mommy's house. Like, don't tell the family business. Yet if that family business was addressed, then you wouldn't have to turn to drugs or illegal substances or even alcohol as a way to numb your pain. And, one of the great things about her time is that we allow the women to bring their children. We provide childcare every session. We also have a program that we call HangTime Mobile, where we take individuals and we teach them about something historically or culturally significant, and we take them there that following week. This past year, we did 6 local museums, from the Mystic Aquarium, amazing, to the New Britain Museum of Art, and a lot of different things in between. And a few of the women brought their children, and some of their younger children. And it was really beautiful to watch them reconnect with their kids, share something educational with them, and just to be a part of it.
Wow. That is, that warms your heart. It really does. I mean, it's such a great program, and the way you guys structure it. And just, I mean, I love museums. I love going and just expanding my knowledge and seeing all the artwork. And I could only imagine what it's done for some of these women. Do you have maybe a powerful success story from your work that's stayed with you that you'd like to share with us?
I do. I actually have 2, a man and a woman. And I will go on to say that both of these individuals now work for us because we have many program participants who are now employees of Hang in Her Time. And one individual is a young man who ended up being very abused as a child, whose father committed suicide, whose mother abused him because she was in such pain. He ended up getting involved with the wrong group of people, went into what was a activity with a group of older guys. It ended up being a holdup of a convenience store. As he was walking in, he was handed the gun. He was told not to be a wimp, to go ahead, and he wasn't trying to hurt anybody. But when he stuck up the convenience store owner, he pulled out a gun, and this young man shot him at 14. He was just 14. No. He ended up going to prison for over 35 years. Wow. He came out because the law changed, and minors who were sentenced at that time were allowed to argue their cases. He came out early. While he was in prison, he ended up getting his education. He connected with positive people who believed in him. He went to college. He studied the law. He argued his own case to get out. This individual's name is Tim. He now works for HangTime as a Choices Youth Mentor, where we provide youth mentoring and violence prevention for high school athletes in disadvantaged communities.
Wow.
And he's been home for 3 years, and he's inspiring every single day. That's just one person. There's many of these. There's also a woman who also works with me, and she went to jail multiple times, larceny-related issues. And finally, about 7 years ago, she was introduced to Charlie at HangTime. She became her and HangTime program manager. She was nominated for a program that we run called the Connecticut Hall of Change, which is the first in the country that recognizes 8 formerly incarcerated individuals a year who have given back in their communities in meaningful ways. She was inducted into the Connecticut Hall of Change in 2023. She was granted a full pardon, and she serves as a program manager for HangTime. Her name is Chrissy, and she's one of the most inspirational, get-it-done women I've ever met.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing! Wow, these people are just they've changed their life around. And when you think about our system, like I think about the mental healthcare system that we have, and I know that the system is broken. What do you think needs to change at a systemic level to better support formerly incarcerated people?
Well, one, I would say this. Some of it has to do, it's cultural. And for many years, even asking for mental health support, as you know, was considered a weakness.
Right.
So a lot of that stigma has gone away, but it still exists. I also think that you have to treat the whole family. And I find in my work that people love to help kids. And we always say this, if you follow home a broken child, you'll find a broken adult and a broken family. So I think kind of you have to address it holistically. You can't just address one person, you have to address them all. I think it would be incredible if we had mental health workers that really spent more time with individuals coming home. I know that we try in our HangTime and HerTime sessions to make sure we have someone with that type of background in the room. And, then it's non-threatening too. Imagine if you're sitting next to someone who is a social worker, and we this is like a common room at a HangTime or HerTime session, a social worker or a mental health professional or somebody who's going to give you a job, and there's someone you get to know. It's like, hey, Serina, I had no idea when I've been talking to you for the last 3 weeks that actually you did this, and so there's this ease and familiarity and comfort by getting to know people. So I think, kind of making it easily accessible, making it mandatory or at least available to people would really be helpful.
That's unbelievable. So, how do you think, how do you, I guess, when you're surrounded by all of these stories, and some are truly heartbreaking, how do you stay grounded and hopeful in the line of work that you're in? Because I'm sure that a lot of times it's difficult.
So that's a really good question. And what I'm going to say, I think you'll find surprising. And it is that going to Hang and HerTime is one of the highlights of my week. And the people are incredibly beautiful and loving. And it doesn't matter what's going on for me that day. When I walk into that room, there's just an incredible amount of energy and love that pours into you. And so you think you're pouring it back, but for me, I get more than I give. And so, and I'm not saying every story is a success. I told you of 2, and there are many like that, but there are also those that stumble. And so you got to be there to catch them. And sometimes you feel like you've done so much, yet the person still stumbles. And, I try to be hopeful. I'm lucky in my own life. I have a really supportive family. I have an incredible husband who is so proud of what I'm doing. I've got, my kids who are proud of me. And I've got colleagues that I can count on. And that's meaningful too, because I'm at a point in my life where I don't work with people I don't like anymore, and not people I can count on. And I feel I have that. And so if I'm having a day where I'm a little bit, under the gun or overwhelmed, I know I can turn to somebody and say, hey, can you help me today?
Wow. Yeah, that's really important to have that support system. And, knowing that you have people that you can count on, that you work with and that are supportive and share your vision as well. What ways do you empower the women in your, I don't want to say program, in your family to use their voices for change? I mean, it's I'm sure it's several people that it takes a lot of people out there, not just one voice. You have to have a lot of people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. I think, I mentioned earlier that everybody's voice is heard and that everyone's opinion matters. And sometimes you'll have women who walk in the room and they're quiet and they don't open up at first. And it takes them a little while to get there. But when someone beside you shares or gives you something, and I'll give you, for instance, I was in Stanford at HeartTime last week, or 2 weeks ago, actually. And there was a prize given. It was like underneath a chair. And everybody wanted these prizes because, it's really fun to win. And someone that I know got it, and just an attendee from Bridgeport who traveled to Stanford. And she found it, but she gave it to the person next to her. Oh. And the whole attitude and outlook, and you could watch this woman just soften and open up because somebody did something nice for her.
Wow.
And we've had stories where, people come, they have so little, but they'll give you everything because they think you might need it. Like, they don't have a bed, they don't have a place to live, but you need $20, and someone across the room says, "Here you go." And I love that because I think about, like, I have friends like you. I have great friends. But if I didn't know somebody and I said, "Oh gosh, I'm really struggling, could you give me $20?" I'm not sure if they would do it.
I would.
But at her time, they will.
That's the beauty of it. That's a beauty of people that come together in a community that are there to help. They're there to build you up. They're there to shine their light on you. And I think, they're not doing it for any other reason than just to be kind. And I think the more that you shine your light, or the more that you say some kind words, or you give that prize that you got underneath your seat to someone else, it comes back to you. It comes back to you tenfold. And I just think that's so amazing. And, if we talk about some of the reflections and in the 3 years that you've been with HeartTime and HangTime, can you share some things which you've learned with some of the people that you've worked with?
Sure, I'm happy to. I would say people as a whole are stronger and more resilient than you think. I also know that we talked about kindness and giving, and you'll get it back. And it's sort of what you were taught, like, treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
I would say that communities that people might look at and say, "Oh," and I used this term before, they're disadvantaged. I found some of the most incredible people who are loving and supportive, who will come together, who made a choice. And that's one thing I'd say about Hang and HeartTime in general is that, we have an incredibly high success rate. I talked about the recidivism rates, and I think we didn't talk about this, but April is actually reentry month.
Wow.
And so this is very timely. And, kind of in the state of Connecticut, how easy it is to reoffend and fall back on your own ways. And one of the reasons we're so successful is that it's self-selecting. The individuals who decide to come to Hang or HeartTime have made a choice. They want to make a change. Sometimes they don't know how, but they really do. And so, I just, the power of the human spirit is always amazes me.
You talk about April is reentry month. Now, I don't know what exactly that means, and so can you explain exactly what the significance of reentry month is and why there's a focus on it?
Well, I think, is it February's Women's Month?
Yes.
And I think oftentimes, individuals, groups, communities that are overlooked, sometimes it makes a lot of sense to shine the light on them. And Reentry Month is what we call kind of returning citizens, individuals who are coming home. And April is the month where there are a number of different resource fairs and a light that shines on returning citizens as a group. And it raises awareness and education. And I think, what's interesting to me is that you'll talk to different people. And as I kind of go through my journey, I found that, like, I have a family member who is just as involved, and a nephew And, if you kind of dig a little bit, below the surface, you'll find that everybody has something.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it just makes sense to provide a little bit more amplification on certain groups, on certain individuals, on certain causes. And we find that we're all just people.
Yeah, you're right. We all, are struggling in our own ways to, to find our way forward, to become, better people or the best version of ourselves. And, working together or working with a group like HangTime or HerTime is absolutely incredible. And I applaud everything you've done in Connecticut. I hope more states embrace the ideology behind it, because we all need the help. We can't do it alone. And knowing that there's a support system out there, it takes some of the weight off. It takes some of the pressure off. What would you say your longer term vision is for HangTime or HerTime?
It really depends who you ask. If you talk to my boss, we would be expanding in more cities, which I think is eventually a goal. I think for short-term goals we just want to expand our outreach to serve more people. We'd like to expand to other cities in Connecticut. It would be my extreme, pleasure and a source of pride if there were HangTimes and HerTimes in other states, because the model's really simple. And it's not proprietary. It's giving people a voice. It's treating them the way they want to be treated. It's offering them support. And this Connecticut Hall of Change, which I think I mentioned to you, is so easy to replicate in other states. I'd like to see that in all 50 states, because these individuals who are recognized are really inspiring, and they inspire others to do the same. And as much as you or I might say to someone, "Oh, you should do as I do," if you to have someone who has actually walked in their shoes do this and educate people and serve as a source of inspiration, you look at that person and you say, "If they did this, I can do it too.
Yeah,
I can do it too." So those are some of my goals, and I think the sky's the limit. I love every day. Obviously, every journey starts with a single step, and every nonprofit, it goes back to fundraising, and so you need that to make yourself viable.
Yes, that's true. And so let's talk about fundraising. How can our audience, if they want to support HangTime or HerTime, get in touch with you? Or
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Like, listen, as I'll say, I'll talk to anybody. I love what I do. I'll probably talk more than you want me to. But you can also go to our website, which is hangtimerealtalk.org, or you can reach out to me, Michele Litt, at mlitt@hangtimerealtalk.com. And, and I also encourage you to come. I mean, come to one of our, if you're in the area, if you're near Connecticut, as I said, we're in 4 cities. We're in Bridgeport, New Haven, Stamford, and Waterbury. Come be part of us. And because part of the secret sauce of Hang and HerTime is that it's not just one type of person sitting there talking about the same thing. It's a diversified crowd, and it's almost like a networking group. And so, you will come in, Serina, and you've been there.
Yeah.
And you'll be sitting next to someone you might know from across town, someone you've never met, someone who's been incarcerated, someone who's in a recovery program. And it's a great diverse group that pulls off of each other. So, get involved, come visit us.
It's funny you say that, because I did come and visit the Stamford HerTime, and I gotta say, I was a little nervous going in. I didn't know anybody. It was a long day, and I wanted to see what it was all about. I had talked to you, Michele, and I felt, your positive energy. And when I walked in there, I was greeted with open arms, hugs, as if they were old friends. And it was really nice. I was given a warm meal. I sat next to some women with children, and they were talking about some of the problems they had with bedwetting and just normal mom talk. And then I didn't expect it, but there was a speaker that came in and talked to all of us about her experience. She was a journalist, and she had gotten into a situation where she had lost her job, and she talked about her struggles and how she came back from that and wrote books and is also on another radio station and is an anchor. And it was so empowering to listen to her story and to have these women ask her questions. I was really blown away.
Yeah, I think the moral of that story is, making a mistake doesn't discriminate, and nobody should be judged by their worst mistake. And oftentimes, if you have been incarcerated, you are. And the woman you speak of is incredible, and you could be sitting across from her at a fancy dinner. And so people, incarceration, it has many faces, shapes, sizes, and colors.
Yes, absolutely. So a little bit of a kind of a change here, a little fun question for you. Could you tell me about a book that you've read that's changed your perspective in any way?
So I am in 2 book groups. I read every night to fall asleep because I have a little bit of insomnia. So I've read a lot of books, but 2 very recently that stood out to me. One is a book called The Women by Kristen Hanna.
Oh, I've read that.
And it's a great story, but it talks about women nurses in Vietnam. And it made me realize I know so little about Vietnam. We don't talk about it. It's not a war where we say, yeah, we were the saviors. It was a bit of a false start. And people came home, and instead of being celebrated, they were ostracized. Yeah. And women played a really big role, and we don't talk about that. So that was one book. And then the other book, based on what I do for a living, is a book called The Other Side of Prospect by a local author out of New Haven called, his name is Nicholas Davidoff. I probably am mispronouncing his name, but it talks about, kind of what happened in the city of New Haven. And Prospect is actually a street that divides Newhallville, sort of from Yale. And if you've ever been in New Haven, it's like going from The Wizard of Oz, where it's black and white, to Yale, where it's Technicolor.
Wow.
And it talked about there was a whole Southern migration following the Industrial Revolution, where people came from mainly South Carolina, but many states in the South, following these jobs in Connecticut. I think it was Colt Manufacturing and others. And then the jobs went away, and the people were still here. And that's why, New Haven has an incredible high rate of criminal activity, people who go to jail. And so, yet there's this world-class university there, and these incredible jobs and this brain power. And so it was really interesting to me to talk about this trend and why it is. And then, the story that kind of went on in the city of New Haven. So those are 2 books I really enjoyed.
Oh, well, I know I've read one, but I'm going to read the second one. The Woman blew me away. I really enjoyed that book, but I'm going to look at this one. So another fun question. What is your go-to self-care ritual? What do you do to give yourself self-love? Because we all need self-love. We all, grind. A lot of times we don't take enough time to care for ourselves. And I'm a big proponent of making sure that if you take care of yourself, then you have more to give others. So what do you do?
Yeah, that's true. So if anybody knows me, I like to exercise. And when I get really busy, I can't, and that stresses me out. But in my younger years, I was a big runner. I don't do that as much, but I try to, I swim now. I still do a little bit of running. I bike. I do kind of that kind of thing. So if I go to the gym, or if I just take, even if it's a half an hour, and I don't wear a device. I mean, I wear a watch that's silenced. And it's just me and my heartbeat and my breathing and my body doing whatever it can. I feel refreshed. And I remember when I was not even engaged to Michael, my husband, and we were with my parents and some friends, and we were all making dinner. And I was like, I need to go for a run. And my mom said, why is she going for a run? And he said, but she's so much nicer when she comes back.
I love that. That's awesome. It's true. I mean, if you do something that you love for yourself, you're better prepared for whatever is going to come at you. You know, I think that's a really important thing to do. What's one word that you will use to describe the men and the women of HangTime and HerTime?
Family.
I love it.
You set me up for that one.
I do. I love it. And the last one that I'm going to throw at you is hope is. Finish the sentence.
Support, love, friends and family. HangTime, HerTime.
That's so amazing. So I wanted to share with you my son, Scotty, of course, passed, and I am keeping his memory alive partly with the show, but I like to share his poetry. And he was a young 15-year-old when he wrote a lot of his poems, but some of them are just so deep, and I try and pick out ones that sort of relate to what we're discussing. And this one is called Uncaged. And he says, my brain feels condensed. My feelings are compressed. My body is dense. The energy that once surged through me, refined me, made me me, left. Even though I know what I did was right, why it's feeling so wrong, I feel like an effing fraud. She made me feel safe and warm. I never wanted anyone more. When I had her in my arms, I felt the highest I've ever been, the proudest I've ever been. It felt as if I was flying, never crying. She took away my deepest demons, replaced them with her love and affection. But she just be giving others the same attention. Now, I ain't saying that's wrong. She's so great. I couldn't even imagine keeping her all to myself. But she told me she wanted me, just me. And she had me. I thought I had her. But obviously, we didn't have the same vision I see. She whipped my heart with a belt. She couldn't control how she felt, just like how ice cream melts. She taught me so much about myself. I couldn't be more glad she felt how she felt. I will never be more happy I met her and won't ever forget her. I mean, it's just crazy how this kid can
Oh my gosh.
write these poems that
Thank you for sharing Scotty with me and with all of us.
Oh, he's just amazing. And I want to just talk to our listeners a little bit and thank you for joining us every week. And I want to let you know that you can reach out and support HerTime and HangTime by going to the website that Michele is going to repeat one more time.
HangTimeRealTalk.org.
And you can also reach out and support SOS, Stories of Survivors, by going to sosradio.live, and you can hit the donate button. If you would like to support me and through advertising, it's always welcome. And thank you so much, Michele, for joining us today. You are a true warrior. And if you guys would like to reach out to her, you can reach out to her on mlit at hangtimerealtalk.com.
You can also follow us on social media too, HangTime and HerTime.
And I wanted to also tell you that next week we're going to have another amazing episode of SOS Stories of Survivors, where survival sparks the soul. Thanks for joining us.